As we all know, there are many Carboots every weekend here in the UK. But here is the problem, you can't make it to every Carboot, what with work and general life commitments. So what do you do when you can't go to a Carboot? Well, that's obvious, you send your wife.
Get pick up! Building the bench room! Rush tricks! Live game hunting!
Hello again folks and welcome back to another live game hunting video, this time with a little bit of a difference. Yes, we'll be hitting up Arminghall Carboot, but instead of following me on the hunt around the Carboot, this time we'll be following my wife. So let's hope she manages to find some awesome pickups at this Carboot. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button and please subscribe, as I put new videos out every Saturday live at 5, as well as bonus content throughout the week, and I really want you folks along for the ride. Now, let's follow my wife to the Carboot. Here we go then, another glorious morning at Arminghall Carboot, just outside of Norwich, but this time virtually through the eyes of my loving wife. And straight in, we're into a CSI board game, which unfortunately looks a lot more exciting on the outside than it does on the inside. Some of these games do look pretty cool, but this one essentially just looks like a lot of cards and nothing too interesting. And the most difficult thing with buying board games at a Carboot, you never know if they're going to be complete. So I'm quite glad my wife did pass on this one, as it had one bit missing. It would be really annoying. Weird item here, WWE bubble baths or shower gels. Incredibly weird, and who would have thought Dean Ambrose would make such an amazing bubble bath? Here we have it then folks, the first video games of the day, just hidden behind this mountain of children's books. Unfortunately, they are mainly PC CD-ROM games, including the entire Delta Force trilogy, which is kind of cool just to see the trilogy all in one place. A lot of kind of generic toys. We've got Barbies, My Little Ponies. Nothing I think me nor my wife have enough knowledge in to really know where to pick up, so I'm glad she did pass on all of these ones. Heading on to the next store, we had a loose PlayStation 1 game, and I knew instantaneously my wife was going to pick this one up because she loves Asterix. Even though it's not boxed and complete, she'll just be able to play it. At the end of the day, that's the main thing with video games, is going back and being able to play these games. I don't think I've ever seen that game for the PlayStation 1, so that's a really good pickup. A couple of other loose discs here, nothing I'd have probably picked up personally. Same as these Xbox games, nothing really too exciting here, so I'm quite glad she did pass on these ones. But hopefully there's more video games on the horizon, as at the end of the day, that's the main thing I would be looking for if I was going to the Carboot myself. And I'm sure by now my wife knows mainly to look out for video games. Down here we do have a steering wheel, which are always tempting to pick up. But this is the thing, space is at a premium in the games room, and these steering wheels do take up a large amount of space. Here we go then folks, my wife's first big test of the day, a massive box of video games. Now, she's been coming along with me to the Carboots for many a year and knows a lot of the things to keep an eye out for. And of course, she is armed with the CEX app. But it's very easy to miss games when you're going through these giant boxes like this. So let's see what she pulls out. Now, the thing is, with a lot of these PlayStation 2 games, as we all know, these are mainly shovelware. And she does basically know to probably stay away from PlayStation 2 games, just because most of them are not great to pick up. The difficulty comes with knowing which Call of Duty games to pick up, and I have said mainly stick to the Xbox 360 games. And you see, she does nearly pass something up here, the original Xbox demos. Now, I have picked these up from the Carboot before while my wife was there, so hopefully she'll pick these up. She did have a little bit of a look there at FIFA 16 because the Xbox 360 version trades in for a reasonable amount, but the Xbox One version trades in for nothing. But it is a veritable minefield when you are going through these boxes of games. Most of the stuff in here is going to be absolutely worthless, and I have trained for many a year to know what to look out for while at the Carboot, and hopefully my young apprentice has also realised the best things to pick up, as she's having a really good look here at this original Xbox demo. Now, I've been really tempted to go for a full set of these, as I see these all the time at the Carboots, as well as these PlayStation 3 demos. Yes, I know there is countless demos, and for me personally, I think I'm probably going to go for the OG Xbox demos rather than the PlayStation 2 demos, just because for me, they have the most nostalgia, as I used to buy this every week. And it's not very long at all until we come across our next massive box of video games. Now, unfortunately, this time most of the games in here were PC games, And again, a lot of these essentially become very worthless. There's a few PC CD-ROM games that come in these kind of big DVD boxes that, yes, do hold a lot of value, but more often than not, most of these don't. Even though I would have probably personally been tempted by Jurassic Park Operation Genesis just because it is an absolute banger, but for me, I'd normally go back and play that one on the OG Xbox just because that one has the most nostalgia for me. Don't get me wrong, there was some really, really cool PC games in here, but I feel like my wife does know that most of the time I won't pick up these PC games because, to be honest, I don't really go out of my way to collect for PC, other than PC CD-ROM games, just because I love the nostalgia of those. So unfortunately, I don't think there's anything picked up in this box, but this is the thing when you're at the Carboot, you never know what could be hiding at the bottom of these massive boxes of games, and I'm really glad that my wife is getting stuck in and digging deep into these massive boxes, because that's exactly it. You never know what's hiding at the bottom, even though more often than not, it is a lot of these kind of World of Warcraft games and other games that sadly don't really carry much value. This is half the gamble of going to any Carboot on any given day. You never know what's going to be there, and so far today, bless my wife, it's been mainly kind of filler titles or titles that just don't have any value whatsoever. There's so many Xbox 360, PlayStation 3, PlayStation 2 games that just trade into CX for either a penny or just the absolute piles of sports games you see at the Carboots. And unfortunately, coming to this late in the season, this is what you're mainly going to see, but there's always some cool bits hiding around here, such as this Wayne's World double pack VHS. But thankfully my wife did remember that I've stopped collecting VHS. Heading on to the next store, and let's see what we have here. We have some kind of cool collectible bits here, and I do like these stores when they have the kind of random board games, the collectibles. There's just a little bit of everything, and this is what I really love about the Carboots. You never know what you're going to see. You just see such a diverse range of cool stuff, even though we are seeing more and more Funko Pops at the Carboot. Next store, and we have some Pokemon cards, and neither myself nor my wife really know the value of most Pokemon cards. Yes, we know our Charizards and our kind of Gen 1, Gen 2 cards are worth a decent amount of money, but not enough to kind of jump into a lot of these traders and make decent or educated offers. Heading onwards here, we have somewhat of a weirdity. Yes, I have picked up these weird kind of prop weapons from video games before, but thankfully this time my wife didn't pick up these strange kind of Minecraft-esque weapons. This was a bit of a strange store, a really weird selection, but just another example of what I love at the Carboot. The weird and the wonderful, the wacky and the strange, and just the oddities you only really see Sunday mornings at Carboot. So continuing on, and unfortunately so far this does not seem to be a very good Carboot, which is no one's fault in particular, but it's just a real shame. We're seeing a lot of shovelware and just a lot of games that aren't really worth picking up, such as this box here, which has literally the definition of shovelware on the PS2, as well as just a load of DVDs. Heading on to the next stall, and thanking my wife to check and see if this was a vintage Simpsons cup. Unfortunately, it was a newer one, and this is the thing with more modern Simpsons merch, it is virtually worthless, which is a real shame, as some of like the old school Simpsons stuff is super cool, such as these old school kind of comic books here. Nothing I really recognise personally, but pretty cool to see nonetheless.
Are these all £1 each as well, PS2? Yeah.
That's right, folks, £1 PlayStation 1 games. Now, my wife did manage to pick up a few of these. Then, unfortunately, somebody did come in and make an offer on the entire box. But here is the thing. If you are not a seasoned Carboot and game collector, you don't really know which of these games would be worth picking up. And yes, they are £1 each, but there was a lot of games that are essentially pretty shovelly, and a lot of these were quite heavily scratched and did have broken boxes. But my wife did manage to pick up a couple of these. But carrying on, we have some OG Xbox games. Unfortunately, it's FIFA, and a lot of DVDs. And this is a thing again, the Carboot is so hit and miss. Some days you will go and find absolute gold, and sometimes you'll go and find absolute just piles of DVDs. But moving on, we have some pretty cool comic books and graphic novels here. The only problem being most of these were priced at pretty much retail. And at the end of the day, if I'm getting up early, or my wife is getting up early, should I say, and going to a Carboot, we are looking for the real deals. This is the thing. If we're getting up at 5 AM on a Sunday in the cold to go to a car boot, we want to get some good bargains. And the best way to get these bargains is just digging deep and seeing what you can find, even though 9 times out of 10, it's probably going to be some generic sports games such as virtual tennis. More comic books here, and at the end of the day, neither myself nor my wife are real experts on comic books, so we normally literally have to judge these by the cover and also by the price. Now, most of the time, if I see a comic that looks cool and it's around £1, I will probably pick it up. Yes, these comics may be worth the price they're asking, but I wouldn't have been sure, my wife wouldn't be sure, so we did leave these behind. The only one I would have been tempted to pick up would have been the Star Wars one near the start, just because, as a general rule of thumb, I've kind of learned over time that Star Wars comics seem to have a decent price, but when it comes to most comics, I sadly don't know the value. So far today, on the video game front, we had seen a lot of shovelware, way more than I'm used to seeing at the car boot, but surprisingly in a good way, we were seeing a lot more PlayStation 1 games that I normally see at the car boot. But unfortunately, again, a lot of these were shovelware, but more annoyingly, there was some really good FIFA titles here that I'd have loved had they been the Platinum releases. Like, I am really struggling to find the last PlayStation Platinum games that I need for the PlayStation Platinum project, and 2 of these are FIFAs. And it just seems today that my wife was just having some terrible luck. You can see here she's found Star Wars The Phantom Menace. She knows I'm a Star Wars fan. I love PS1 games. And this one's not just missing the manual, it's also missing the disc, which is a real shame, as I think this one would have been a pretty good pickup. Some great PlayStation 1 games today, but at the end of the day, if the game isn't there, it's not worth picking up. Loads more PS2 games here, loads more DVDs, and more steering wheels. There just seemed to be a day of steering wheels, PS1 games, and shovelware games. But this is a problem. 9 times out of 10, this is what you find at the car boots. It's that 1 out of 10 times, though, that when you find something super cool, and most of the time, this is where you are going to find them, hiding in these massive boxes of games. But this is a problem. Once again, a lot of these boxes are full of games that people just want to get rid of. The kind of games that most times will just turn up in charity shops. The games that you can't sell on eBay because the value is too low. The games that it's not worth trading into CX because they trade in for a penny. This is where they end up normally just before going to the charity shops. But you always have to search for these, because I have found some absolute gold in these boxes. But here is half the issue. You have to know what you're looking for, and I think I've trained my wife pretty well. She can basically see there's nothing of great interest in this box and is unfortunately moving on. But this is the thing, you never know what's going to be in these boxes. Check out this next stall for classic car boot fodder. We have some terrible screen printed t-shirts, which honestly, had they been in my size, I'd have loved to have picked these up. And check out some of these absolutely cringe inducing mugs. But this is what I love about the car boot, the weird and the wonderful and the strange. Another box here, kind of full of vintage toys, and this is where it can get difficult. Searching through these vintage toys, you can see here there's a turtle. I possibly would have picked this one up, but yes, it is missing its accessories, and judging from the video, it is hard to tell the condition of this. But here is the thing, when it comes down to these retro or even modern toys, it does come down to condition. And if something has been played with, which at the end of the day, it is a toy and that's what it's for, it can be in pretty rough condition, and it's all about judging its condition and whether it's worth picking it up. A weird Star Wars helmet there, and some other weird things here, but moving on. More games here, and unfortunately more shovelware. We are getting later and later into the car boot season, and unfortunately pickings are getting slimmer. But here's a strange one. Some of these themed monopolies, I swear they have a monopoly for pretty much anything nowadays. But let me know in the comments down below if you know which of these monopolies are worth keeping an eye out. I'm sure there must be some of these that are worth a decent price, but it's something I just don't know about. So if you know which monopolies I should be looking out for, let me know in the comments down below. It'd be great to find one. This is something that's always worth checking out at car boots. These boxes of random electricals, because you can find some hidden little gems hiding in here. Not yellow boxes. you can find some good video game controllers, and half the gamble is seeing if these work. And thankfully this time my wife did pass on this one because she could tell this wasn't an official PlayStation 1 controller, even though some of these are pretty cool. But at the end of the day, who's got time to untangle all those wires? Some more video games here, and honestly probably the coolest thing in here was this kind of Tonka police car. It did look kind of retro. Don't really know the year of this. Could be totally wrong. Could be fairly up to date and modern, but I would have thought this would be quite retro. Heading on, we have some more comic books here. And again, like I said earlier, don't really know the value of these. My wife doesn't really know the value of these. The only ones she really collects are some of the Archie comics and also the Simpsons comics. And at the end of the day, a lot of these more modern comics don't really have the collectability of the older comics, just because that's the same way with a lot of modern collectibles. The market is just absolutely saturated. Here is the thing, the more they make, it just kind of drives the value down, which is a real shame with modern collectibles. But I have no idea what this was. I'm glad my wife videoed this, but this was really cool. Again, I have no idea what this is, but this just spoke to me. A cool vintage robot. And back here we are to the kind of modern collectibles flooding the market. This is the kind of thing I like, these kind of retro robots. But then you get a lot of these kind of more modern collectibles like the Doctor Who stuff. There's just so much of it on the market now that essentially have just driven down their own pricing. Much the same with some of this Pac-Man merchandise. Yes, it's cool, but it's just so mass produced. Unfortunately, it takes away the collectability. 50% of finding stuff at the Carboot is luck, and it just seems today that my wife is not having no luck. Two cool PSP games here. Unfortunately, only one of them actually had the game in. So unfortunately, we are coming to the end of the first Carboot here at Arminghall. Now my wife did head to the other Carboot on the way back to ours at the Park and Ride just on the outskirts of Norwich, but unfortunately here again it was slim pickings. There was a lot of shovelware games, and even some of the good games were very, very highly priced. But I am super proud of my wife. I think she has done me proud at what was a very, very difficult Carboot. Slim pickings, but we do have some pickups, so let's go back to the games room and check them out. Here we are then, back in the games room, and let's get it out of the way straight away. That was a difficult Carboot. We are coming to the end of the season, and unfortunately pickings are slim, but I still think my wife managed to pick up some pretty interesting little bits for the Carboot in a very, very tough Carboot. Our first pickup is a loose PlayStation 1 disc, but it is this game, Asterix, for the PlayStation 1. That's because my wife is a massive Asterix fan. As soon as I saw this, I knew she was going to pick it up. Yes, you are normally looking to get games boxed to complete, but at the end of the day, as long as you have the disc, you can play the actual game. Keeping on the PlayStation 1 theme, both of these games were just £1. And you saw there was an absolute pile of PlayStation 1 games, but unfortunately, these did not stick around for very long as somebody came and bought up the entire lot. But my wife did manage to pick up these two games. So first off, we have Hardcore 4x4. Yes, it's a little bit rough, but at the end of the day, we managed to pick up not one, but two PlayStation 1 games for just £1. And in 2023, that is quite the achievement. This is how I can tell my wife has been paying attention when we've been hitting up our Carboots. She knows I love collecting these old demo discs. That's because back in the day I used to pick up original Xbox magazine every month and play some of these classic games such as Grabbed by the Ghoulies and Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and this one even had Armed and Dangerous, one of my favourite hidden gems for the OG Xbox. It was just a cheap way to play so many games like Blinks, Quantum Redshift, even the Tiger Woods games were on these demos. And the thing was, you got to experience some of the most iconic games of this generation on these demos, such as God of War. This demo had a playable demo of one of the greatest games of all time, and not only that, there was Lego Star Wars on here, Brothers in Arms, Destroy All Humans, some absolute classics. And sometimes you don't want to go back and play an entire game, you just want to play a little bit of it, such as The Getaway, Black Monday. And these demos are perfect for that little half an hour of absolute perfect nostalgia. Here we have our final pickup, and like I said, this Carboot was super tough, and I'm really proud of my wife for finding anything on one of the hardest Carboots I've ever seen. Our final pickup this time is Invisimals for the PSP, and I can't believe this actually uses the PSP camera, which randomly I do have. whenever it comes to any console, it's always worth trying to pick up the exclusive games, and to the best of my knowledge, this game is only playable on the PSP. There we have it then, folks. That was a Carboot with a difference. And here is the thing, we are in November now, and these Carboots are going to be coming to the end of the season. But let me know in the comments down below if you've managed to score some last minute deals at your local Carboot. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, hit that like button, subscribe, and as always, keep playing the game. See you all soon.